Got you. You can hear me?
I can hear you, man.
We're good to go, man. How's your week been?
It's been crazy, but good. I can't complain. It's been very, very busy. I got a lot of stuff to do on here today, so I don't know if that's realistic, but I'm gonna hold on. Yeah, I don't know if it's realistic, but we're gonna find out if I can make it happen. I'm really pushing.
Aim for the moon there, and up among the stars.
I am aiming to the moon. But this is like really the whole week. Like it's not. I tend to plan a day. I tend to plan a day like it's a week.
Yeah.
And then get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
When I realize it's very hard to fit 7 days or 5 days of work in one. But I'm still trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out.
I'm the same way. I think like I make a list of all the things I want to accomplish. But what happens is basically it's a daily list, but it follows me through the days. So I don't, if I like rewrite it every night, that's been a really useful practice instead of.
I do that.
Yeah. Instead of writing one at the beginning of the week and then trying to refer to it. It's like, no, if I force myself to write it every night on a new card or whatever, then at least it's there. It's not like.
It's crazy you would say that. My mentor had us do an activity where he said, I want you to buy a notebook and I want you to put, actually, let me get it because I think this would be dope. Is this it? There you go. So it was called, you just put, get a notepad or whatever, composition notebook, and it's just put what you want on it.
Cool.
And then you put I want on the top of every page.
Oh, cool.
And you list it, right? And what was crazy was kind of piggybacking on what you just said about writing it every day. As I kept writing it, I started to notice stuff fall off. And it's like, if you really wanted it, it would not make the next page.
Right.
And so I might say something like, oh, I want a Rolex, for example. And then 3 days from now, I won't put I want a Rolex anymore. And by doing this activity more and more, I started to realize all the, this might be good for some people. All the stuff that is physical stuff fell off. All the things that were meaningful stayed. But by doing it over and over again, I'm like, I want a Rolex. And it's like, okay, well, what happened? Did I just go on social media and see it, whatever? Yep. And then it's like 5 days from now, I don't have that same feedback.
Yeah.
And then the things that stay, what rises to the top
totally
is the things that really you should be going after.
It's so like, it's intuitive, right? It makes sense that the things that really matter will last the challenges, but by doing it every day, you are creating a process, like a filter for yourself. Because I find if I don't, like I said, if I don't rewrite the thing over and over, it just becomes, it grows distant, whatever it is on my list that I need to do. I've never done the want thing. I'm going to try that out. But the things I want to do, that list grows distant and more distant.
Yeah.
And so I got to think every night, is this worth putting on the list tomorrow? And the stuff that matters the most tends to stay.
That's crazy. Cool. So when we're recording these things, there goes our guest.
There's Dobby the mascot.
When we're doing these things, do you have something to write around you?
Usually I do. I didn't grab one today, actually. I forgot to get one today, but I noticed that. I was like, yo, man, I don't want to miss. I mean, obviously these are recorded, but like, I just was thinking, because when you said every day, it was interesting. This morning, I was like, I want to write a book called Every Day. But then I was like, well, what are you going to talk about? So I like, right. Like, and I was thinking of like, the power of doing something every single day. Yeah.
And then I started thinking about what are things we should do every day. right? So it's like this, there's just stuff like, you know, brushing your teeth or whatever, right? So obviously we know that stuff, but what is it every day? And I was noticing recently, I've had like a kick up in business when it comes to speaking.
Cool.
And to be honest, the kick up only happened because I said every day I'm sending emails to potential people that I can partner with. And it wasn't attached to the outcome. My commitment was to the day.
Right.
It was execution. You said you were gonna every day. Did you send 10 every day? And it became to a point where it didn't require any energy. And so I'm almost wondering when people say, yo, I'm so tired of doing this. I would say, well, there's almost like a double-edged sword, two sides with that. Every day might get boring, but then also every day, if you do something, it also requires less energy to do it if you've been doing it every day.
100%. Yeah.
So what do you think about that? I mean, I think first of all, what is something you do every single day besides the brush your teeth and take a bath or something?
Yeah. Actually, do you know, this is kind of cool. I've been reading The Power of Habit is one of the million books I'm reading right now.
Charles
Duhigg. Yeah.
Duhigg,
have you read it?
Yes. I have read it.
He's such a great writer, which makes these kind
Does it make your head hurt?
A little bit.
The science.
He's such a good storyteller. And do you know the story of Pepsodent? Like how we came to brush our teeth as a culture
with the foam.
Yeah. And we didn't, like, people didn't brush their teeth until Pepsodent. Well, Pepsodent was the most effective marketing campaign because they created this cue and then a reward. And suddenly people were like constantly feeling a film on their teeth. So that would trigger, well, I need to brush it with Pepsodent. And then they also had that foaming agent, which tingles your mouth and gives you the, oh my goodness.
Not worries.
Gives you the reward. So anyway, I just, I guess it's a habit that I've always taken for granted and never really think, like, it feels important. Yeah, you got to brush your teeth. But was it really an ad campaign that like changed the behavior of a culture? That's fascinating to me.
It is fascinating that you can control that.
Yeah,
right? Like that. It is fascinating. It makes you say it's almost scary too that someone can program you to do that just by having that that cue, like you said. It's just like, oh man, like I don't know that it's working if I don't see the foam. And then they add something just to make sure you know that that's happening, right? Yeah. So I think I need to go and reread that book because I do think that there's something extremely powerful in knowing that whole thing. Maybe we could talk about it like you've been reading it. So like, do you remember the framework?
Yeah, it's cue and then the action or the behavior and then the reward. And then it's a loop, right? That's called the habit loop. Yeah.
Habit loop. So when we talk about the cue, so those who are listening to it, because I think one of the things we've heard, and I know it's interesting because in one side you're studying habit, but then I also know that sometimes that can kill creativity too, right? Like
totally.
Right. So you're like how to go and do things intentionally versus being so habitual. And I know we had talked about that before. But there is advantages to it. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, if this is so good. So like today's Thursday.
Yep.
So yesterday morning, I go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's like the time for class.
Yep.
Monday and Tuesday morning, I set out the clothes that I was going to wear the night before. So when I wake up and my habit is waking up, turn to the left. When I wake up and turn to the left, I saw clothes that was workout clothes. And I was like, okay, you have to go to work out.
Yeah.
Tuesday night, I did not set my clothes out. And yesterday morning, when I did the 5:30 o'clock, when 5:30 came and I turned left, I saw no clothes. And then turned right back the other way, did not work out. I did go at night, but it was like I needed to see the close to get it done. So last night I switched it. I said, oh, that's what happened to me. So I know I'm tired, I'm beat up. I went to a class last night, so I didn't really think that I would go the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, if I see the close, immediately it means go.
Yeah.
Like you already set it out, no extra steps. And so I did go this morning. So I think it's thinking of like, what can you put, and is the cue like, you interact with something or something is present that triggers a response in your mind or reminds you of something? Is that
anything,
what it is?
Any stimulus. So like even the alarm clock, if you train yourself a little bit to respond to the cue, 6 o'clock means you go work out. That's as much of a cue. The fact that you strengthen the cue by putting your clothes, because I think most of us have de-trained ourselves from clocks over time, right? So the close is a really effective one. The power in the habit, he says, is the craving, though. So it needs enough iterations. You need to have cue, behavior, reward enough times so that when you see the cue, you anticipate the reward. And that creates the craving. So there's a spike in our brains and like a dopamine rush, basically, when our reward is satisfied. And that's what feels good. That's the stuff of cravings. But even if you, if I think about a pizza or if I see a box of pizza, I immediately start to anticipate eating the pizza. Mm-hmm. I get the reward before I ever have it. And that drives me to get it. It's like, that's the power of the habit. So whatever your reward is for working out, when you see those clothes, you're like, you've trained that urge to just follow the cue and go get it.
It's a great book, man. And there's I think there's another one. Have you heard of Atomic Habits?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet. That's about the little stuff.
Great one. It's a great one to read after you read that one. I don't know if you ever heard of this tip, but there's someone who told me this. I forgot who it was. Where they were like, whenever you read a book on something, go and find 2 or 3 other ones on the same topic and see what is consistent between the 4 of them.
I love that.
So Atomic Habits actually does reference power of habit.
Okay.
And simplifies it for the person who's not as scientific.
Okay.
Because when I read Charles you said Duhigg? Duhigg.
Yeah.
When I read the book, I was like, this is really good. But the other side of it was I really wanted to read it long before I opened it. So even when I read the stuff and I was like, I don't like reading this, I already convinced myself that this was good to read. So I powered through some of the bumpy parts of the book.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Atomic Habits didn't have any bumps for me.
Okay.
It was like I got almost the same thing, except it didn't take as much energy to finish it.
Okay. Fascinating.
So definitely look into that. I think that
I'll check that out.
What made you read the book? What I mean, I'm pretty sure this is not the first time you've interacted with this book, right? So what makes you, is that the first time you're reading The Power of Habit?
It is the first time. I've seen I've seen a TED Talk maybe by him, and I'm familiar with the habit loop in truncated version. I never actually got to the book though. And recently it's become more important to me as I start studying the practices that make possibilities and like what propels or compels people to do stuff without reward. That's the how do you get
compels people to do stuff without reward? Yeah.
So I don't know that
you do. What is something you do without reward?
I don't know that there's anything, but the reward is like not the ultimate reward somehow. So for example, working on the classic for my example is working on a sleight of hand, like a technique, and not seeing progress, right? Why continue without seeing progress? Because there's trust. That's the reward is there, but I have to trust that I won't see it for a while. And that's the motivation.
There is there's a video by Kevin Hart on that very concept you just said. And it basically, he says the true grind is doing something with all of your might, not seeing anything from it, and then coming back the next day with even more effort than the previous day.
Wow.
Everyone would do it if they had positive feedback.
Yes.
Would you do it when you don't see anything is important. And then and as I'm studying the people who are very successful, there's this other guy named Scooter Braun. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Heard of him, yeah.
I think he founded Justin Bieber or something, or him and Usher, or he's helped Justin Bieber with his career in terms of elevating it at some point. Okay. And Scooter had this story about like, if someone told you, all right, so like, I'll give you the scenario. He says, beloved, there's $1 million. You get $1 million if you can hit a home run off a 95 to 100 mile an hour fastball. Right. So there's a long line of people who want this $1 million. First of all, would you go on the line?
Would I go for it?
Yeah. Would you go for it?
Yeah, probably.
All right, you probably.
Yeah.
So you would probably go for it. You see the line. Does it matter how long the line is?
That's a good question. Yes, I think it does, but I would wait in a pretty long line.
Okay, so you would wait in a pretty long line.
Yeah.
And so what the question, what happens is, and what Scooter was saying is that most people will go on the line. They'll come to the plate. They won't get it done. And what happens is when you finish, you have to go on the back of the line to try again.
Right.
And most people, they'll stand on the line the first time. When they see how impossible it is, they won't go back on the line again. He says the people who are successful, they're the ones who, when they swing, they run back onto the line, no matter how long it is. And they'll, like they'll cut the line. They're like, I'm going to get as many swings as possible at this X, Y, and Z thing. And so when we think about like the great reward, we always like, yo, you want to win $1 million? Sure. But then it's like when you got something that almost is impossible for someone who's never played baseball to hit a 100 mile an hour fastball and hit a home run, right? Which we start thinking about, man, how am I going to hit a home run off 100 miles an hour? And then, or we don't even say how. We say, I can't. Yeah. You don't even ask the question.
No,
It's like, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that I realized is like, what's so crazy is they say that the harder the pitcher throws, the easier it is to hit a home run.
Right.
Like it's like, yo, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? It's like, you just have to put the bat on the ball. He gave you all the energy that was required to send it out.
Yeah.
And so as we're thinking about this, even for those who don't like baseball, to understand that if the opposition is great, all you need to do is just show up and take your swing. Instead of you thinking, I got to be so amazing, so great, so excellent. If the opportunity is excellent, most people shrink because it's too big for them. And so what happens is you might be the only person that ever gets a chance to swing at it, because now that you have this perspective of, I didn't have to be automatically all this big stuff. I didn't have to be like, hey, well, do you bench press 500 pounds and have arms like a bodybuilder to smack a piece of wood on a ball and hit it over the fence? It's like, no. What is the energy that the person is throwing at me? And I just got to be able to stand in there and make contact.
Yeah.
And I'm just, oh my gosh. Like, sheesh,
that's great.
This is,
that's great.
So crazy.
My cat is going nuts here. Sorry, G.
He's like, I like the lights.
Over. Got cat energy. Yeah, that's absolutely a brilliant example. And I think that's, if we can find that lack of reward is the key to figure. If we can figure out that, you can help anybody change behavior. And so maybe it's not the lack of reward, but reframing what the reward is. So because we know it's necessary. So for me, to get to a place now where, and I've only, oh my goodness, sorry.
No problem.
I've only gotten to this place now because I put in enough work and saw that the reward did come eventually. So I experienced the success of a move.
Gotcha.
With enough time.
That makes sense.
So now the reward of putting in time on a move in the immediate sense is the experience of putting in time on the move, which I know I need to put so much in to like build my bank account of hours on the move before the reward comes back. And so in that reframing, there's like, I will trust that the process will deliver, which is exactly what I think we're talking about when we say daily, like every day, daily habits, daily practices. I'm interested in helping people, you know, develop the things on a daily basis, these little practices that create possibilities in your personal and professional life, but also create a sense of purpose and meaning and contribute, like all the things that life feels like it should be. So yeah, this is all timely habit related stuff.
Habits is huge.
Yeah.
Huge, man. And I think and the beauty of it is that the thing I love about habits is that the thing doesn't have to be big for it to be powerful. Like habits, I kind of think of habits like hinges.
Yeah.
So hinges are small, but the doors are big.
Yeah.
But the door can't swing without the hinge.
That's it.
You know, so it's thinking about like these small things. And a student asked me this yesterday. He was like, Gio, I suck at self-discipline. How do I work on this? And I said, well, first, let's identify what self-discipline is, right? Self-discipline normally is we put a period after we say the ability to say no. We say, yo, self-discipline. What is self-discipline? Yo, you want that? No, I'm not. I'm good. I'm disciplined. I'm not touching that. I'm not touching McDonald's. I'm not touching fast food. I'm disciplined.
Yeah.
But where we fail people when we talk about self-discipline is stopping at no and not letting them know that you're saying yes to something bigger. Because it doesn't make sense to say no for something I want, but is there something you want even more? That's what you're saying yes to. So now when I see the thing in the distance, that's really what I want, I can go over any little no right here. And so if someone is struggling with the no in front of them, the yes or no in front of them, then it's because what's behind that is not big enough or enticing enough, not craving, not something that you really crave.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly it. Habits aren't destroyed nor created; they're replaced. So
that's a good one, man.
You don't.
That's a big. Talk on that a little bit more.
Well, we have our whole days are full of routines already. Most of the problem is, I think, we don't realize that. That's the unconsciousness of, you know, walking through society. Consumerism is very good at turning us off to our habits, as evidenced by Pepsodent and the story of brushing our teeth. But they say, you know, if you want to exercise more, you have to. What are you replacing with exercise? You're not just introducing a habit because you already have a routine that's taking up some time in your day. So what are you going to replace or substitute for that exercise routine? And then you have
that's so huge.
Right. Fascinating. Because so like,
it is fascinating.
Yeah. I like it because it means like it's a realistic way of looking at behavior change. There is only so much time in a day. And to make change requires commitment and doing work, which takes time. So we have to be aware of the limited bank account that we have and how much we can deposit. So change means sacrifice. I like that. There has to be some element of giving up in order to introduce. which I think is realistic and an effective way to think about it. But I also like, I had a thought about this and just right out my head. That to give something up, like you say, it's not enough to say no. It's about having the bigger yes. Mm-hmm. And we're way more motivated by the bigger yes. Always. This thinking like you have to replace a habit or they just interchange for each other makes it necessary to have the bigger yes. You can't just drop TV watching, right? I want to consume less Netflix. It's not enough. You can't just do it. Why do you want to watch that? What is the thing that you're now creating space for? And suddenly there's like, you introduce a process again that helps to cement the change in behavior, I think.
No, that's well said. I think that's important, the whole harping on the replacing part of it.
Yeah.
By the way, just a thing entered my mind. Have you ever done a TEDx talk before?
Yeah, one.
What was it on?
Called The Illusion of Knowing.
I like that title. I gotta go look it up.
Yeah, check it out. In summary, the quick version is The
Illusion of Knowing.
Of knowing, yeah. Magic reminds us that we're always missing something. Even when we're paying close attention, we're still missing something. And everybody agrees with it. It's not a new idea, but we forget it all the time. We're susceptible to the illusion of knowing. We love to feel like we've got things figured out. Our brain takes shortcuts so that we feel certain in this uncertain, complex soup. It gives us grounding and it lowers our anxiety in the short term. But in the long term, it gets us stuck and we close ourselves off to possibilities. And there's a couple of ways that I think, here's a really cool thing, just worth thinking about. So I do this in the TED Talk, but give me a word. What does it feel like to be right?
To be right?
Yeah, just in a word. What's the human experience of being right?
Strength, power.
Feels, strong. You feel powerful. You feel good generally, right? Mm-hmm. I think everybody agrees with this. Okay. What does it feel like to be wrong?
Bad.
Right.
Weak.
Negative.
Weak. Negative. Yeah.
Disappointing, whatever, which everybody also agrees with, but we're actually answering a different question. What you've just described, that feeling of negativity, is what it feels like to find out that you're wrong. Because the truth is, before you find out that you're wrong, the feeling of being right and the feeling of being wrong feel the exact same. It's only after you know you're wrong that you feel disappointed in this and this and this. But in the present, you think you're right. You're not, nobody's ever intentionally in the wrong. They feel like they're in the right. And for that reason, we are blinded by our sense of certainty. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know when we're wrong. And sorry, I'm going off now, but have you heard the story of Macarthur Wheeler? This is fascinating.
Go ahead.
So this guy, there's a bias called the Dunning-Kruger Effect, named after these two researchers who studied a guy named Macarthur Wheeler. And Macarthur Wheeler in, I think, 1996 in Pennsylvania, maybe Pittsburgh, robs two banks in broad daylight without wearing a mask. In fact, not only does he not wear a mask, he smiles in front of the security cameras and like poses for them on his way out of the banks. The police pick him up within like 2 hours from the footage. They bring him in the station and they're interviewing him. And this guy apparently is like totally flabbergasted that they caught him. He can't figure it out. And he keeps saying, I was wearing the juice. How I was wearing the juice. And so they dig a little deep, like, what are you talking about? And somewhere along the line, Macarthur Wheeler had learned about invisible ink with lemon juice, right? If you take lemon juice and you write on a piece of paper, let it dry, and then you add fire or heat to it later, it produces a message. It's invisible ink. And he had made the cognitive leap to assuming that lemon juice turned things invisible. And so he had put lemon juice on his face, thinking that it rendered himself blurry or invisible to cameras. And he was so blind to his own error that he and confident that he was right, that this became a phenomenon. People were like, what is this? So the Dunning-Kruger effect is basically when we know very little, we have a lot of confidence that we know a lot. And then the more we learn about a topic, the more we realize we don't know anything. And so our confidence drops. And then eventually, enough time in a subject, we learn again and again, and we come back to a place where we're actually experts and we fought through the...
Oh my gosh. This is so freaking good. Yo.
Isn't that, I mean, what a story, first of all, but like...
It's so crazy because you start thinking about knowing too much can be good and bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yo, I didn't know any better. Like, think about some people who's like, yo, like this, like, how did you know? I didn't.
Right.
And then some other people's like, how did you know that I was going to work? Because I, experience or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But it's crazy of that cycle of, I know very little. Confidence is on another level.
Yeah. And people judge. This is the thing. I tell the story, and not in the TED Talk, actually, I learned this afterwards, but I tell the story and people laugh, right? Because, dude, how ridiculous is that? But the truth is, that's the nature of Dunning-Kruger syndrome or effect, is we all have juice on. We're all wearing the juice. Like, we can judge somebody else for making that decision, but we fail to recognize the point is that we are in a place right now where we think we're right, and we're actually probably wrong. There are things that you and I think that we know that we don't. And we can't help, our brain has made the jump. But I think if you're aware of it, and this is why magic can be so important, because magic constantly submerges people in a sense of mystery. When you are aware that there's more than you think there is, there's a door for possibilities. There's suddenly a reason to entertain the question, what if, to doubt yourself. And it doesn't feel comfortable. That's the thing. This is another part of where I think people have trouble, is that it's not comfortable. It's really uncomfortable to admit that you don't know. We talked about this before with the bathroom, running around on a campus. We don't want to admit that. So if we can, again, as trainers or as coaches, if we can help people find a way to grow comfortable in the discomfort, admit we don't have things figured out. I mean, what would the world look like if the president of the United States, not to get too political,
soon. No, but go ahead.
Like, just people in power feel this, especially people in power and authority feel, and teachers, it's everywhere. It's anywhere there's power. We don't want to admit we don't know things because we feel like it makes us look weak and unauthoritative, but it's actually the opposite. And it just takes wading into it a little bit. If you've ever worked for a boss or had a teacher who admitted they didn't know, like, you immediately feel an affinity and a trust with that person because you're in the same boat together. This is a shared experience of a lack of knowledge. And that's a vulnerable place to be. And the more that we start to share and grow in the space of, like, this is a complex place and we know very little about it, but we're in it together. I think that's the stuff of world-changing measure, man. I think it's
crazy you say that. One of the students in my course is writing a book on that alone.
Really?
Yes. I don't want to say the title of it just so
no worries.
Out, but it's literally on this title specifically. Yo, you have to put tomorrow is Friday. I need a flashback Friday to this TED Talk.
Yeah, we'll do, man. It's true.
That's a dope. The Illusion of Knowing is a dope title. Because the reason why I came up and asked you if you did one was because I felt like you could do one on the whole unconscious thing we've been talking about before. We talked about before. And I don't know, I wrote down for you like the death or unconscious, like death by unconscious or something. Oh yeah. But there's something there where it's like, yo, people are not, unfortunately, checked in, right? It's like, I'm checked out. I'm not doing anything. I'm not here. It's like, whatever. And it's a low level of engagement.
Yeah.
In a lot of things. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then something you said earlier about replacing, I wrote down the word exchange, right? It's like the word trade.
Yeah.
So almost if you think about, like, I think there's a movie, there's TV shows and stuff that's called Trading Places.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it must have been a movie. Was it a movie?
Trading Spaces, Trading Places.
Trading Places, I think, was a movie. Wasn't Eddie Murphy?
Oh yeah.
Something. Yeah, Trading Places. Let me go on. This is the beauty of going on stuff like this. You can actually go on.
Yeah. Do a quick Google on that.
Trading Places. Yes, Trading Places had Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy in 1983.
Right.
Oh my gosh. It had a $15 million budget. It made $90.4 million in the box office.
Wow. In 83.
Trading Places. And I think, isn't it that crazy how, like, when we trade places, that's where we get humbled?
Totally.
That's exactly what happened in the movie.
Huh.
It's also what happens, what would be powerful in an exercise. And I think I must have learned this in the NSLC stuff, training and stuff like that, about what happens when we give somebody power to see how they act with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now I'm the boss of this said company. And now I got to go and be the employee, and the employee could be the CEO for the day.
Right.
How does the CEO take instructions now that you're not the boss anymore? Mm-hmm. Now, how do you receive when you've always been giving?
Powerful.
And it's so crazy how you will see how you show up. Like, you know, and I think of a story in the Bible where it talks about, like, a guy went to get his debt forgiven, for example. And then right after he got his debt forgiven, he saw someone who owed him. And he was like, listen, I'm going to kill you or whatever, because you owe me something. And the king or the emperor or whatever, who just forgave the guy, got word of the person not forgiving someone else and was like, I just forgave you. You just experienced this grace that I gave you. And now, instead of passing it on, you think you're entitled to something when I just gave you something you had no right receiving. And so when I listen to that story, I think about, like, how much, if we stop thinking, I'm entitled, I deserve this. We have young people, hey, why my kid didn't get in the game today? Because he's not that good yet.
You're right.
No, but everyone should play. Really? Because here's the reality. If I'm playing baseball, there's 9 players on the field. 16 players are not playing today.
Right.
In basketball, there's 12 people on the bench, 5 are on the court at the same time. Someone's not playing, people. It can't be like, so when we think about it, and this could be almost like touching a sore spot, because I know, like, we talk about equity, we talk about these things, and sometimes someone doesn't play. Now, I think it's important. The difference with the equity piece is everyone should have the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be systematic in terms of, like, hey, we already predetermined who's playing or not.
Right. Yeah. You have to work this much harder for your chance to play just because.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's where it's completely different. No,
yeah.
That's crazy, man. So what you working on? Like, what are some stuff you working on?
Oh man, so much.
What's got your mind? What are you pondering, wrestling? What's the stuck between a hard rock and a whatever the other phrase is, but what is it for you?
Yeah, I've got a lot in the fire all at once. So I'm trying to scratch that. That's a hypnosis thing. Never say trying, it implies failing. I'm
trying implies failing.
Yeah.
You ever heard of the quote by Yoda?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Right. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good hypnosis thing. If you want somebody to not do something, say, go ahead, try.
That's what my mentor taught me. He said, Gio, pick up the chair. Picked up the chair. Gio tried to pick up the chair. And all of a sudden, what I just did, there was a delay. I started thinking, what do you mean try? What? And it's like, what just happened? It's like, the difference was you said, do it. And the other one said, try. And immediately, like you kind of said, it almost puts in my mind that I might not like. Let's say like, oh, B-Love, this is so good. This is, I need to make sure people don't watch this because they might get me to try stuff. It might end up actually getting me to try stuff by using this on me.
Right.
So I don't like seafood, right? So somebody will say, have you ever tried it? And immediately I go and say, well, there's a possibility that this might taste bad, right? There's a chance. So how would you, Hypnosis Wonder, how would you get me to, for lack of a better term, because I don't know any other word, get me to try something without using that word? How do we, maybe someone right now is like, I got to get someone to do something, but they use the word try or test it out.
Yeah.
What's the language? What can we replace that word with?
Just be direct. Just like eat the shrimp. You know, like you, don't. And if you can frame a reward, like if you were in hypnosis, if you were in an altered state, there might be a suggestion that eating a shrimp will fill your mouth with the best tasting and best texture that you could work against what your resistance might be and replace one sensation with another suggestion. So every time, that's like you're just building a habit loop again. Like the cue, I feel or taste this, which is normally would make me go, ugh. And the replacement is, oh, when I taste this actually means it is this. And you relabel or redefine that experience. And, we talked about magic words.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, we did talk about last week about the power of the words. I think just eat it. It's interesting because one of my mentors, he has a company called Rewind, and it's like a health products, like supplements and things like that. And he has these green juices.
Oh yeah.
And on his website, the green juices, he says, this one tastes, the strawberry passion, whatever one, tastes like cherry ices, Italian ices. And I was like, it tastes like Italian ices?
Right.
Send that over.
Yeah.
Send it over.
Uh-huh.
Like just the fact that that's even possible. I don't like green juices. Send me that, please.
Yeah.
And so he sent it to me. He said he was going to send it to me yesterday. So hopefully I'll get it in a couple of days and I'll be able to report back on the next episode.
Yeah, let me know
about what that was like. Bro, B-Love, he said a cherry Italian ice. I love cherry Italian ice. So you mean to tell me I can get green stuff and it tastes like? I didn't even ask him what's in it. I was like, you just said it tastes like this. I'm going to do it. Like yeah. I gotta see.
Game over.
Yeah. I gotta see. That's so crazy. Look how this is crazy. Like we just went on a riff there, just off trying implies failing.
Yeah.
Give it a try. It's
language is powerful, right? That's the lesson. Everything we
think
say.
About it, even in sales. Like in sales, now I'm like looking at every email I've sent, and it's like, if I've used the word test. So how would I word a test run of something? Or does tests not have the same implication as try?
I think it's weaker, but
what's weaker? Test?
It has a less of a negative effect.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
The word try specifically, like before you failed, you tried. Like every time, right? So try sets you up for that expectation. Test, not the same. Although testing has a whole bunch of other connotation to whatever school room nightmares you might have. So there's like whatever, you might be bringing up emotions for people using the word testing. That
that's good. You know what word I use?
What's that?
experiment.
Experiment is a great word.
I use experiment because what you just said about the connotations.
Yeah.
When I was doing an experiment in school and they taught us, we learned the word hypothesis.
Yeah.
And the definition, as I remember it to this day, and I think I learned this at like 3rd grade, but it was like hypothesis is an educated guess.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that's all it is.
Yeah.
And I started to break down this whole idea of experiment. And I was like, if I make an educated guess and I do this experiment and here's the crazy thing about this, beloved. You do an experiment, you make a hypothesis, you go through it, and then the guess is wrong. What's beautiful about experiments is when my guess is wrong, I just made a discovery.
100%.
So I don't lose.
That's right.
It's like I either guessed right or I discovered something.
Yes.
It's a win-win situation.
Yes. Man, I love this so much because, gosh, I'm just like, my mind is exploding with my entire undergraduate focus. My whole, I love science. I took a philosophy of science course in university. In university, I thought I was going to be a doctor. I had this idea. I think we talked about this. I was going to be Dr. Love, and things trickled away from that rightfully. And then I was like, philosophy. I love big ideas. I love these sorts of conversations where, we're just jamming on ideas and figuring stuff out. And I took a philosophy of science course where I had this scientific background. I thought science is this really robust and know-it-all kind of discipline. And in the philosophy of science course, I learned science isn't the body, science is the method, right? Science isn't the body. There is scientific knowledge which has been gained through experimentation, but science is a method first. It's a process. And the goal of good science is not to prove. When people say proven by science, I cringe a little bit by the language. I know what they mean, but science is actually meant to disprove. Science is about disproving the hypothesis. That's because it's the only thing you can test. You can't prove anything with science because there's always a possible other explanation. But what you do is you test the possible other explanations and disprove them one by one. So you can end up with really robust theories that have been tested again and again and again and again, and they feel like they haven't been disproven yet. But that's as much as you can say. As of yet, they are active theories that haven't been disproven, which this is again going back to like the illusion of knowing, or this idea that the world is unknowable. So we have to make our best guesses, but remember that they're best guesses. And I love thinking about this, not just with respect to science, but this is the theory of evolution as well. Like a bunch of species and a bunch don't make it because they don't have what it takes to survive. And so the ones that live on the longest, they just haven't been eliminated yet, right? They just haven't been weeded out. The same is true of our theories of the world, our own. We grow up, we make hypotheses, we test them in the world, and then we learn what works and what doesn't, and those things drop away. When we make our lists of things to do, the things that get disproven fall off the list. They just haven't passed the test. They didn't have what it takes. This is the way of all things, but we lose sight of it and get caught up in the idea that we know and are masters of this space around us rather than students.
Oh, love it.
And
this is crazy.
This is a deep dive. This is like the psychology of consciousness, I think. And that's
so powerful.
I credit one of the biggest life-changing ideas for me in my life was being introduced to complexity thinking. I think we talked about this last week, but the idea that there are countless The universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine. We are in a space of inconceivable complexity. We can't even begin to approach it. And that's scary and miraculous at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And I mean that in the sense like it's full of wonder if we only had the eyes to see it. Such a powerful thing.
A very powerful thing. You know, you also made me remember now, there's a book called The Science of Getting Rich.
Of getting rich.
Of getting rich. And I've heard this as a book that has been the test of time in terms of like the principles and stuff in there.
Okay.
The reason I never actually read it though was because it had the word science in it. It turned me off. And now I want the book because I don't see science the same way. This is why it's so important to have when we talked about last time about conversations. Yeah. The conversation today has changed to me my perspective of what science is.
Cool.
Right? So I'm hearing science is the method, science is the process. So if I go say the process of getting rich instead of the science of getting rich, it sounds a little bit different in terms of how I view it, although it's saying the same thing. I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's now great. When I think about how, like, I hate science class, which some people, they do like it, but I know some kids who hate science. Oh yeah. I hate it with a passion, people have said, right? And I think the reason why subject matters don't work is because we don't see what is going to produce or the connection of it. They're like, why do I need to know science? Why do I need to know this or that? And when you're able to help someone understand why or how, or how it's transferable, it changes everything.
Yeah, like you just brought it full circle, man. Because we were talking about habits at the beginning. How do you get somebody to do something that they don't want to do, that they don't see the reward for? And the short answer is you don't. You don't get them to do that. You need to help them see the reward. And I think you're right. In school, my buddy Joel, you've met him at NSLC. Yeah. He likes to say, we need to make education fun and relevant. Like those are the things. It needs to be inherently interesting, has to have some element of surprise, some element of discovery. It has to feel enjoyable, and it has to make sense to the learner. There has to be a sense of relevancy in their lives right now. Like I can give you an example of this. When I was in high school, I really didn't, like many kids, I didn't understand math. I understood the concepts in isolation, but I didn't understand why the subject was mandatory and why you had to learn all of these, when am I going to need to calculate the tangent of when am I going to use trigonometry if I want to be a speaker, whatever it is. I couldn't see the reason why. And so I didn't invest time in it, even though I kind of liked it. And I imagine if I didn't like it, all these kids that are just struggling to get through it. But I know later I had a professor who was like, the reason you learn math is so that you train your brain to think about abstract concepts. And so you're actually you're learning to juggle ideas when you learn math. So the skills you learn when you're practicing calculus transfer into time management skills, for example, which is also about juggling different things, or about project management, or about solving problems, right? Which you're going to need to do whatever you venture into in your life. And suddenly I was interested in learning math. I had a reason for it. And I'm like, if somebody had given me that in high school, instead of saying, well, you might need it one day, saying, no, you probably won't ever need this. But consider this like puzzles. We're playing with these puzzles so you can train the muscles in your brain, the pathways so that when you have a puzzle in the future that really matters, you have a better chance of solving it.
Correct.
That was, you know,
that's so huge. And I think one of the things that makes that hard to convey is that sometimes when you help someone figure that out, someone else who majors in math gets frustrated because it almost looks like you're undermining what I'm doing.
Huh. Yeah.
Think about, so it's like, you don't teach math. You didn't go to school for math.
Right.
Now you're getting credit for making math important to somebody, but I went and got educated on teaching it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where a lot of times in the schools that do very well typically have consultants, because they're the ones who are bringing in perspectives outside of theirs, so that they can have the ability to know what they don't know. And when you stay and you quarantine your knowledge, for lack of a better term,
like that,
and that's the kind of ties into what I was talking about the other day, is that when you create a bubble, yes, you're safe in it. Yes, you're able to keep things away, but you also have to understand that you don't only get to keep away the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You're also keeping away the good.
Yeah. Oh man. You said something just now. Yes. The consultant thing. This is a fun thought. Who are teachers? Teachers are typically the ones that did well in school. The ones that succeeded in a system. Let's say school works for 30% of kids. Let's say, like maybe that's a general, I don't know. I'm estimating, but a bunch of kids feel disengaged by the time they get to high school, totally disenfranchised for one reason or another, because the system doesn't work for them. Doesn't feel relevant. But let's say 30% of kids it works for. And so we have this engine running, and who becomes teachers? Those 30%, typically, right? So now we have a self-propagating system where the system that I learned is the system I'm going to teach because it worked for me. So I assume it works for everybody. And we miss out on the chance to, like, this is why science gets taught this. I remember having teachers that, remember those, I don't know if you had those overhead, like plastic sheets, and the teacher would throw it up on a screen and project their lessons back in the day. I had a teacher who had all the lessons for like 30 years unchanged. Just like going through it, because for him, it was the thing that he thought worked, but it was so dry and there was no spirit in it. There was no sense of relevance. It was just so hard to learn from that. And so I totally see the role for educational consultants. And like you say, just that other perspective, the real thing. And I think this is a shift in education now. In my experience with teachers, there's way more training about teaching to listen or listening so you can teach.
Yeah.
You know, paying attention to the students and where they are and what they need, and then teaching to their level. No,
that's huge. There's a law of, I believe teachers would be assumed to be the leader of the classroom. I think, and one of the things I talk about is leadership. To be a great leader, you have to practice the law of duality. The law of duality is I got to wear two hats. In the classroom, a teacher's role is typically set the temperature, but you also have to read it though. Because I could set the temperature at 90 degrees and everybody's burning up. And if I'm not reading that they're burning up, I keep them in that environment.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to have that law of duality where, yes, I'm going to set the expectation and I'm going to be present as in the room to see if what I set was right or wrong. You know, so you have to have the ability to do both of those things.
Yeah.
You know, so the idea of what you said about like teachers asking questions is like, here's the agenda, right? But then when the agenda comes and it doesn't land, what you gonna do now?
Yeah.
Right. So in sports, they say, my brother's a scout, and he would tell me, Gio, there's two abilities that are very important. Coachability, like can I coach you? And the athlete's ability to adapt, so adaptability. So when I change something, can you still rise to the occasion? Can you still perform? And then when I change it, are you able to receive new learning in the first place? And so I've always asked, there'll be athletes, I'm like, yo, this guy's a freakish athlete. He's going to be amazing in football. And he's like, nope. I'm like, what do you mean? He's not coachable. And he was like, coaches like clay, not stones.
Gold. Oh man, I love that, man. That's so good. The moments of truth. This is the thing we talk about scientific knowledge, but there are bits of resonance, you know, like that idea of coachability and adaptability so readily vibrates in like every other area of my life. I think that's the key to success. Like I'm not athletics aside, if I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to keep going and roll with punches, I'm going, where is there? Oh, like we have a lot of those moments in these in these chats.
Yo, this is huge because now I'm writing stuff, and this is why I say it's always important to create space for these conversations. I was just having a conversation with somebody, and I was an athlete in high school, and so my thought was, I actually started my speaking career talking to athletes.
Oh, no kidding.
I was a football coach. So I would just do rah-rah speeches, motivation, get them to see things from a different perspective. And then I became so I was speaking, hold on, let me make sure. I think my headphones died and now I can't hear you. Okay, I'm back. So what would happen is before I became a professional speaker, I was doing speeches to athletes. I became a professional speaker and stopped talking to athletes. Right? And so I was talking to a friend and I was giving her advice because she speaks to athletes. And I was like, man, like I need to go back to that. Like there's an untapped thing there. And I love it. Like I love athletes. Like I love sports. I love that. And it's so crazy how I intentionally or not intentionally left that alone completely. And now this conversation we're talking about, where now I can go and take my skill as a professional speaker and show them how coachability and adaptability is so important to develop. Like you want to be an amazing athlete, right? You need to be able to go and adapt, right? Because it's like, hey, there's this, and it goes back to what you were saying about education. The athletes that perform very well, we say it's amazing how they work in multiple systems. Then there's the systematic athlete, the one who like, if these conditions are not present, they can't make it work.
Right.
So now I think about like a Tom Brady who played 20 years for the New England Patriots and now is in Tampa Bay. My definition of finding out if he's really successful is his ability to go and make it work over there. Totally. Look at LeBron James. He just won another championship. This is the third different team he's won a championship with. So you can go and say, wow, what is it about him? And I'm pretty sure his adaptability and him being coachable has helped him. And some people might say he's a little bit not coachable, but I think him being a natural student of the game. So it could be different. Sometimes we may not be coached by another human being. It might be the experiences of others coach us.
Yes.
But you have to be able to receive and download lessons in order to be able to make anything work.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
I really think about. I want to help people be able to make, no matter what conditions, the conditions are work. And I think this is why I believe in the middle of a pandemic, while we have an amazing, unique opportunity to develop skill sets in conditions that none of us would wish for.
Right.
And so if I can make those conditions work, then my level of confidence because of my competence to be able to make less than ideal work, and understand like, yo, if I can make less than ideal work, then normal will work greater for me. And in the perfect conditions, oh my gosh, like that's just like
Cakewalk.
icing on the cake. Cakewalk.
Yeah, man. It's all gold. All of this is gold.
I love it. I need to see them back. Like I need to watch the videos.
Yeah. Oh, we got this is our third recording.
I told my wife about it yesterday. I was like, hey, I've been working on something. You didn't know, but I've been doing this for like the past few weeks, making magic. And she's like, really? Like, I'm like, yeah, it's been great. Like, just showing up and creating that space consistently to go ahead and do it. And having these conversations and bouncing back and forth, and even the science stuff, the exchange, the trying implies failing. Like science is a method. Like all these things, as I'm listening to them, I'm like, man, that's so crazy to me that these big, like you said, complex ideas, how we won't ever fully understand them, but then at the same time, how do you solve complex? And we normally think, it's almost like that opposites attract or opposites, right? So whatever the case may be. So it's like complex stuff don't get fixed by being complicated.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like it's complex. So it's almost like that whole, it's bringing it back full circle, be love with this full circle. Complex things, when we bring that complex energy, is the same thing when I was saying about what energy do I need to produce to hit the 100-mile-an-hour ball? The complex is already coming with all the force. I just need to do simple, consistent, and game over.
That's it.
Gee.
What's the simple in the soup? And with the complexity in the background, like it's always there, which means there's always an unlimited realm of possibility if the stuff that we're doing right now doesn't feel like it's satisfying or getting us where we need to go. Like how empowering a thought is that, It's good stuff, dude.
We could talk about, I can talk all day